Excuse me. All right. Okay, come on. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeff, your host. I'm filling in today for Chris. He's currently out. He's sick. So we are going to get back into, this is number 5. Video, episode 5. And we'll go to, we're going to go, we're not going to do a 10-minute video. Damn, I don't know if I have the ability to not. We're going to do 16 minutes or so. I just don't know if I'm going to. It's going to be a long video because I'm going to talk a lot. So let's just get to the video.
The thing that sucks about fucking Taylor dying is he was like kind of a beast that could have maybe prevented the Civil War that was looming.
And then Fillmore was just a schlub.
Fillmore was a schlub. He signed. This is where it all starts to fuck up. Every single one of these guys up to Lincoln is just fucking up immensely. He wanted to sign
the buck and passing the buck.
So Taylor was offered to sign the Compromise of 1850, which was some shit about one slave state, one regular, or they get to decide, shit like that. As soon as fucking Taylor died, Fillmore takes over and signs it. Southerners were mad that California would join as a free state. Northerners were mad about the fugitive slave law, so they both compromised and were both pissed. Fugitive slave law was if you find a slave in the North, there's U.S. Marshals that'll catch them and bring them back to the South.
You have to help them get them back.
And
really?
There were dudes that were just like grabbing black people. Be like, got him. Where's my bounty? So
That's
it was
how the 12
bad.
years a slave guy got taken.
Oh shit, is it?
Yeah, he wasn't. He was a free Northerner who
Somebody
just got
kidnapped
grabbed by
him.
one of those guys.
Yeah.
Damn.
It was bad.
Happened all the time.
He was the last.
Real fast about Millard Fillmore, since he was the vice president under. Oh my goodness, how am I forgetting names so easily? Zachary Taylor. Jeez. He was the vice president of that. Well, your vice president is the president of the Senate. Zachary Taylor was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And as the vice president, you're the president of the Senate, your job is to split ties. And Millard Fillmore, Zachary Taylor was like, this is what I want to, pass. It's going to be a stumble, in the Senate. It's probably going to come down to you. You just vote for it. As you would expect your vice president to do. It's your agenda, and he's pushing it through. Not Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore was like, I don't agree with it, and I'm not going to vote for it. So Zachary Taylor's own guy was against him on his own bills. Never happened before. And it's never happened again. But it just shows you what he was working with.
Last member of the Whig Party. They didn't run him a second term. Here comes Franklin Pierce. He was pals with Jackson, son of a Revolutionary War hero. He's from the North, but he was pro-slavery. They thought this was going to work. 2 months before this is crazy. 2 months before his inauguration, he and his family were in a train crash, and the only casualty was his 11-year-old son.
Damn.
So his entire time in office, he's blacked out, drunk, and depressed. He's the saddest guy of all time. He's not listening. His kid just died. His wife blamed him for the death constantly. She was like, we should have never been on that train. He just had to be the fucking president.
She wore black mourning outfit and cried. If he walked into the bedroom or any room that she was in, she just started crying. She held it over him for the rest of his life. He was a kind of a northern, kind of a wealthy guy. And he just figured that America needed somebody of his stature. When he was a kid, he was in school, and he decided he didn't want to be at that school anymore, and he left and he came home. And he came home to his mom. I don't remember how old he was, teenager. Came home. Sorry. came home, and his mom and dad showed up in a stagecoach, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, I left school, I quit school or whatever." And they were just like, "Oh, that's terrible, but okay." So they had dinner. After dinner, Franklin Pierce's father was like, "Hey, let's go for a ride." Jumped in the carriage. They're just going on along, and then all of a sudden he just pulls the carriage over and he goes, "Okay, get out." Franklin Pierce is like, "Get out?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is about where you were probably dropped off on your carriage, so you walk the rest of the way. So you can just walk back to school because I'm paying for it, and you're gonna go." And Franklin Pierce is like, "Okay, fine." Yeah, but his dad was really slick about it. Just, yep, there you go. Right back to school you go.
Oh, you gave birth to him, bitch.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do that.
You were on the train. You had fun.
Yeah, dude. Fuck.
So he's there. During Pierce, they do the Transcontinental Railroad. This is like the real. This is a fuck up for the North wants it to be from Chicago to L.A. or one of those places out west. The South wants it to be from Atlanta to L.A. In order to get it done, they have to get rid of the Missouri Line Compromise, which made it nothing north or south of here was the slave line. They decided to make it so every new territory got to decide themselves. They got to vote in order to get the Transcontinental Railroad. So this opened.
Every single thing we did to build this nation ran into this slave problem.
Yes.
Every single thing we tried to do was like, yeah, but the fucking north-south slave states, non-slave states.
Jesus.
We need to build a railroad across. That's the first interstate
Yes.
thing. The first interstate objective.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that you need a federal government. It's why the federal government got stronger and stronger. Because every state gets to do their own thing, but you want to take a fucking train from one to the other, these two states have to make a compromise.
Yeah.
So you needed a federal government to make these.
It was like the precursor to union, non-union. They just blow
Yeah,
up a
yeah,
gigantic like inflatable rat.
Yeah.
They everything was an excuse. Man, I could really use, winter shoes. Yeah? Well, I could use more slaves. Well, but that's not what I was. No. Everything was a slave issue. It got really bad. Ooh, I would like to have a piece of cake. Yeah, what about your slave? Okay, I don't have a slave. What are you talking about? Everything. Wasn't that dramatic, though?
Yeah, it's the other reason, just as general thing, that the federal government what gave the federal government power was the states wanting parity with each other. Like when environmental laws became a thing, they were state laws. So like Indiana would make a law, you can't dump, sludge into the river anymore. So every company in Indiana has to pay extra to do a better job of dumping their shit and take it to the ocean or somewhere else, ruin somebody else's life.
Yeah.
But so next door to Indiana is Illinois, and they're like, we dump anything we want, and so all the business goes there. Mm-hmm. And so the Illinois company's like, we don't want to dump, we don't want to hurt the environment, but we can't compete with these guys, right? So they would all the states would go to the Fed and say, please pass a law that affects everybody so that we can all do the right thing that we want to do without having to get squeezed out by this guy.
Yeah.
And that worked until we started doing shit with Mexico and India and China. But anyway, go on.
But yeah,
so,
it was interesting to me. We're at I think Pierce, right? On the Transcontinental Railroad.
Yeah.
That turns out to be like that's what started it. I mean, obviously there's a ton of major factors, but that was like a big one because it opened what was called the Nebraska-Kansas Act, which is they got to decide to vote whether they were pro-slave or pro-abolition. So then a bunch of people just rushed in from the north and the south, and they started fucking killing each other.
What?
Yeah, it's called Bleeding Kansas. Is kind of one of the starts. They just showed up, started fighting each other, and I passed the area kind of where one of the things that happened when I went to Eisenhower's and Truman's home, but I didn't have time to stop. I ended up stopping at I think I'm dying. I stopped at the train robber's house. What? I'm sorry. Apparently, I'm dying. My brain doesn't work. Bank robber, train robber. Jesse James. Wow. I'm surprised I know how to breathe if I'm already forgetting names. But Bleeding Kansas was where John Brown got his start and later led to him trying to get a slave revolt going and then going to Harper's Ferry and getting captured, getting hanged, and that was kind of the precursor to the start of the Civil War.
It was I forget the names. They were pretty sick. It was like the Free Staters versus the Border Ruffians. This is where John Brown and his son was out there.
Oh yeah.
They started hacking people with swords to death. Like
Jesus.
that was it. And Franklin Pierce was like, he did nothing. He didn't get involved.
Yeah, but dude, it must have been crazy when you had a bunch of slaves. Like, this is wrong. You had to be like, nah. You couldn't. It must have been crazy to be like, nah, I don't think it is.
Well, you just would pretend not to, or you just wouldn't. I mean, you'd see it on the newspaper was faded, and it was like, I don't know that much about it.
Just not being able to go down
I'm
with
okay
that.
to my slaves. I treat them okay.
Yeah, they're great.
True.
Yeah.
Right? Tell him. He's like, oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he was all right. No, it's fine. No, and meanwhile, the North was starting to get. This is getting after Pierce is who?
Buchanan.
So Buchanan is the guy who right before Lincoln,
yes,
right? Because the other thing that was going on is the North is industrializing, and the North is starting to build sweat houses and factories, and so part of the argument that people were having that is like the kind of argument we would have now. If it would be interesting to take this culture with Twitter and everything and supplant it to slavery days and how we would have handled that debate back then.
True.
Because there were people that were saying, the North has free workers and a ton of them immigrants that had started, and they're treated like garbage. They're living like shit, and they're dying in large numbers and getting sick, uneducated, and being not allowed to be educated.
Yeah.
Kids are working heavy,
There's a ton
long
of
shifts.
southern political cartoons that are like that.
That are about how bad they were. And like our slaves are like a member of the family.
Yeah.
We give them their own house with their plot of land. They get to do this and that. Most slave owners were better. That this is the argument.
Yeah.
And that the North was just like wholesale destroying lives.
Yeah.
And read what's his name? Fucking Upton Sinclair. Shit was going on in Chicago and the slaughterhouses.
What's it called?
It's
about the meat packing shit, right?
Yeah.
The jungle. What's it called?
The jungle.
Yeah.
So another important thing about that point of the industrialization of the North, it just flooded with immigrants. So now their population's so big that they get more votes, they get more electoral, like all that. So now the South's like, we need to get power. So now we need more states. We need more states because otherwise they're going to abolish slavery and we're going to be poor.
But they're also hanging on to a way of life in the South.
Yeah.
And in the North, they're not. They're trying to do anything that's new and anything that's next and anything that's large amounts of money and large amounts of industry. And they're manufacturing in huge amounts. In the South, they're just trying to play a fiddle and whip a guy.
The North was very industrious. And so they were looking like at the life of factories, so on and so forth, while the South was still hanging on to that 1700s way of farming, plantations, stuff like that. It was just a different, it really was just this division between North and South, and it was just such a change in the way that people lived. Just it was just vastly different. That's why the South didn't have as many railroad tracks, and that was one of the things that did hurt them for the Civil War, was because they weren't able to transport troops, weapons, food to more areas than the North. The North had more tracks, and so they could stop at certain areas. With the South, the South may have wanted to go here, but that train track went this way, so they'd have to get off here and then start marching that way. While the North, they could go to where they needed to more often than not.
And grow a little tuft of cotton for one shirt every 6 months.
Yeah, true. It's a good thing to point out.
Yeah. It's important to know.
True.
Yeah, but
This leads
that
us-
was the fight. It was an insanely different.
Yeah.
But we still wanted to be one country. We wanted to be one country. So it was this weird a conflict that
Yeah.
never went away.
So
Yeah, I
then,
feel like, does it continue to morph till now? It's just like some dudes
It does.
wanna chill,
It's-
wear
we are-
Carhartt, and other dudes like, no, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of tight.
But so what's his name?
now we're at James Buchanan, who's
Yeah.
probably the worst.
Okay, James Buchanan, I do believe, is one of the worst, but I'm going to defend James Buchanan right now. A lot of what we know, the negative stuff about James Buchanan, is based off of Edwin Stanton, who Edwin Stanton was a bit of a shit talker. He really made himself the star of things. Like, James Buchanan was a garbage president, and if I hadn't told him to do this, he wouldn't have done it. Well, what about all the bad things? No, he did all those on his own. Oh, okay. All the good things you get credit for. All the bad things he gets credit for. Edwin Stanton went on to be he met Lincoln one time when they were handling a case in Cincinnati, and he pretty much wanted nothing to do with him. He, prairie lawyer and everything, and just was completely disrespectful to him. And Lincoln wasn't one of those type of people that would, he just kind of went about life like, okay. And then later on, he ended up hiring Stanton to be his Secretary of War. And Stanton was a lawyer, and he had argued cases in front of the Supreme Court at the time. So he was a known guy. He was very difficult to be around. And I have heard that I am related to his brother. That's where my thing comes, but I'm not sure. My DNA test did not say that, so I don't know. But
Yeah,
I think-
he was just he was frozen by two. He had so much pressure.
He was a lawyer from Pennsylvania that was just about the law,
Yeah,
which was the last thing you needed to be as the president, which was like, well, that's the rule.
but he had all of Lincoln's problems with none of his charisma
Yeah.
and guts
Yeah.
and blood.
That was
crazy,
James Buchanan had the Dred
willingness
Scott.
to kill.
Dred Scott was
Yeah.
under James Buchanan, which
Yeah.
was where, if you don't know about that, that was about a slave living in free territory, and he was suing to get his freedom. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, where they ruled he was an object, so he was not a citizen. Therefore, that ruling made sure every black person in America was an object and not a citizen. And Buchanan responded by saying, "That's the law. That settles it."
The Supreme Court officer who gave that ruling, he was the Chief Justice, Roger Taney. He was appointed by Andrew Jackson. He worked with Jackson in closing the bank, I believe. But I pause this now just for my own thing. Dred Scott has he has descendants that are alive, and there's a woman. I'm going to pause it real fast, and I'm going to look her up because I clearly respect her immensely. So be right. Okay, I'm back. So, talking about Dred Scott, the person that I was talking about, her name is Lynn M. Jackson. She is the great-great-granddaughter of Dred Scott, and she goes and speaks to she goes and speaks to people just about Dred Scott, slavery, the Civil War, and all this and that. And March 8th, 2017, descendants of Dred Scott, which would be her, hugs Charles Taney III, a descendant of the U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger Taney, who basically made that decision. So they hugged, and he apologized, and she said that she accepted the apology, which is just, a side note. It's not going to come up on the thing too well, but yeah, why would it? You know what I mean? Anyways, he's so pale. It's a black and white picture of Roger Taney, and the other one is more of a painting of Dred Scott. But I got to talk to her. I missed she was giving a speech about 40 minutes away from me, and I missed it. And then I was trying to get her set up to go to Lincoln's Museum, because in Springfield, Illinois, Lincoln's Museum, there's a section on there that does have Dred Scott, and it talks about a lot of the John Brown situation, the Dred Scott, and the lead up to the Civil War. And I thought it'd be really cool if she was there talking at Lincoln's thing, but I wasn't able to get things worked out. I tried.
Instead of standing up, he
Right.
just had to follow the law.
Yeah.
So he was just like an extension of the court.
Yeah,
It wasn't his job.
yeah.
Man,
And that brought us to Lincoln. And as soon as Lincoln gets elected, the South secedes.
Yeah, every state starts to say we're not America anymore. Like
Yeah.
immediately before he takes
Yeah.
office.
It's also
He wins the election, and then states start to secede before he's even inaugurated. And Kentucky-born, with Lincoln, but Kentucky-born Jefferson Davis takes over and becomes the president of the Confederacy. And he actually is inaugurated, was it a week before Lincoln? I don't remember.
so crazy checking in on the headlines, and you're like, nah, they said you're a chair, basically. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah, dude.
Yes.
Fuck.
You got Lincoln, though. You know Lincoln.
Well, we could maybe skip him because he'll be the whole fucking.
Yeah. We could
I
stop.
mean, look,
we could stop
Lincoln-
with Lincoln. Let's stop
True.
with Lincoln. And then you go on to some guys you're interested in after Lincoln.
All right.
Yeah, we're good. We
What
can go
time-
as long
how
as
long
we
we
want.
been talking for?
An hour.
Okay. Well,
You're not
Lincoln-
enjoying this? You're not having the time of your life?
I'm having a great time.
I knew
Time
you
of
would.
your life.
This is
I'm
nice,
not
right?
having a great time.
You're not having a great time.
No, I'm not. I hate this.
Decent time.
Really?
No, I'm having a good time.
How much fun?
You decide which one. The thing I liked about, I mean, I gave you that book about Lincoln. That's a great, what's his name? Carl Sandburg. It's a weird kind of stream of consciousness telling of Lincoln's story in 4 volumes. It's crazy. Just the warriors, just from when he took office. And when he was coming here, there was everything, hell was breaking loose, and there was supposed to be a January 6th. There was
Yeah.
supposed to be one.
What?
There was a plan to stop the certifying of the vote.
Mhm.
And so they went to General, what was his name? He was the only American general then, because we didn't fight wars anymore.
Yeah.
So the army was kind of like not, you
Fuck,
know.
I think he was the commander.
It's a name you just know when
when
you
it
hear
started.
it. Like Scott something.
Oh, yeah. Winfield.
Winfield
Winfield
Scott.
Scott,
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. So they went to Winfield
I looked it up earlier, already forgot who it was until he said Scott.
Scott, the guy's running the government, and then they said, we think there's going to be this thing where they're going to try to stop the so he said if anyone, made a declaration, publicly, he said, if anyone tries to stop the counting of the votes and the democratic process from happening, either by force or by infiltration, I will stuff them into my cannon and fertilize my lawn with them. That's what he said.
Lincoln said that?
That's what he said.
What?
No,
And,
Winfield Scott.
Oh, Winfield Scott said
Yeah,
that.
and what he did
I don't know if that's a real quote, but I would go with it.
in real fact, because he was a really smart guy, he gave all of the Capitol police and all those guys that they had the day off. They said, go home. And he went and got policemen from Baltimore, from New York City, all kinds of like badass cops. And he had them in plain clothes all over the Capitol, heavily armed, but in plain clothes. So, and people know, so if somebody started something, the guy would just go like this or elbow him or whatever.
Yeah.
But the appearance was that it was peaceful and that there was no military presence.
Whoa.
But nothing happened. That's what it took to get Lincoln. Everybody, up to the minute that happened, everyone was like, I don't know if he's ever going to take office. People believed he would never be president.
Dude, he wasn't even on the...
He's about to say he wasn't even on the ballot in the South for Lincoln for presidency, which is true. When Lincoln won the presidency, he was told that there's an assassination attempt on you. And he was met by Pinky? The detective agency. And I want to say Pinckney. Was it Pinckney? I want to say it was an Irish guy. I'm probably way wrong. But anyways, they showed up with him, and he had to get in a fake disguise and change over trains, like around Baltimore or something like that, or he had to skip a train to skip Baltimore. I don't remember now exactly the process. But side note, if you ever see Lincoln without a beard and he's clean shaven, that was before he was president. He grew the beard out because a little girl said that he would look like more handsome or smarter or something like that. So he grew the beard out. So you see the beard, he's president. No beard, he's not president. It was everything before. Just, so if you see a picture.
Ballot in the southern states. Not even on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yep.
What?
He didn't win one southern state.
A lot of people, big people who
Yeah.
would be like whoever now, wrote long things saying don't take office. Your presidency, your victory is hollow. It's not real. Not even just people from the South, but people from the North. Everyone was afraid that Lincoln was going to just immediately free the slaves and start war with the South. And his first inauguration, he says, first thing out of his mouth is, I have no intention of freeing the Southern slaves or changing their slave laws. And yes, we will chase down and bring you back your slaves when they come up here within reason. He puts like a tiny thing of like, we're not going to like make it our obsession, but we will do it. Like it's the first thing out of his mouth.
That's what bothers me about people, like people that are critics of him hang on to that. And they're like, Lincoln didn't want to do it. It's like, dude, the whole time that's what he wanted.
Of course he did. That's what, again, it goes all the way back to the framers. They all wanted this to be a better country than it was. So they knew they couldn't create a nation without slavery. So they said, let's create a nation where people can change peacefully. They can change not only leadership, but the laws. Create a situation where people figure it out for themselves and move forward and change, instead of like a constitution could have been a very permanent thing. It could have been a very solid, permanent thing, but they actually made it elastic on purpose. And that's, Lincoln was like, we'll do it, guys.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We need some fucking time. And boy, what it cost is crazy. And a lot of people who didn't want slavery were really angry at Lincoln for how hard he pushed that war, and that he didn't just settle it. Just let the South do whatever they want. We have our free blacks here. Let them take their chances down there. You're killing millions, or however many fucking, I don't know how many people it was. Like 250,000 people died in the Civil War.
Yeah, probably around there.
Something like
At
about
least.
how many we killed in Iraq in a day.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
700,000 casualties in the Civil War. Now, casualties is not always death, but 700,000 casualties. What are you doing? Keep rubbing your stomach? Okay, I'll keep rubbing your stomach. What are you... Okay. 700,000.
True. Yeah. For doing nothing.
less than
doing
Middle
nothing.
Eastern civilians.
Yeah.
Measure it in like Persian weddings.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it was. Lincoln's the best.
It was really something. I mean, it just took a lot of political guts, a lot of fuck.
Yeah.
This is gonna
Jesus
suck.
Just trying to talk to these fucking cunts from the South.
That must be nuts.
That it's just like, clearly this is for money. You know it's wrong.
Yep.
You know it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's dude, it's 1865.
Well, it was the ultimate time.
1860. They know it's wrong.
Well, and
Yeah.
folks not wanting to say that shit's wrong,
Yeah.
and him like not making them say it, but getting them to
Yeah.
just one guy at a time. He would just go around, get support here, get support there, put muscle in where he had it, and he fought a brutal war,
Yep.
fucking a incessant war.
And he had to wait until he got a victory to fucking announce the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
trying so hard to get it out, but his generals kept fucking up and losing.
Oh, he's like, fuck.
And he would just be writing to these dudes like, "Go,
Yeah, please
do it,
Get one.
get one." Like, I think he wrote it after Antietam, which was like a draw. He was
And
like,
he
"That's
dro-
pretty
oh, well,
good."
yeah, he did.
He's like, "That's close enough. Here we go.
So
We're
then
doing
he's
it."
shot
Yeah, and then he got his fucking head blown off.
by next to his wife.
Yeah,
And they put a little napkin. That was what they did for him. They put a little napkin back there and hoped, but it was not a good. It was not a very.
he was alive
absorbent
for a
napkin.
while after.
Yeah, that's what
He
I'm
didn't
saying.
just
It's like
die
they
right
could've-
away.
He didn't have to die at all.
The guy who was with Lincoln the night he was shot, he was a military guy. I don't remember his name. That guy got invited because the original guest was Ulysses S. Grant and his wife, and their son was back from school or something like that, or from the war, maybe. I don't remember. I don't think he had any kids in the war, but he had some family back, and he hadn't seen him in a while. So him and the wife skipped out on going to Ford's Theater to go there. On their way in a carriage, a guy on a horse pulls up, stops the carriage, and then just like peeks in on his horse to see who was in there. And they were like, "Can we help you?" And the guy doesn't say anything, and he just leaves. And later on, they arrive wherever they went to, and Ulysses S. Grant is immediately told from the wire that Lincoln had been shot, and he gets a kind of a, they say this is who did it. It was John Wilkes Booth. He's an actor. And immediately his wife said, "That's who stopped our carriage and peeked in." So, he was just checking to see who was this, leaving the White House or, whatever. Is this the president? And if it was, he was probably going to kill him or try to. And then another side note. And I've heard the morning of the assassination, and I've heard like a week before, whatever. Lincoln's son was on a train platform, and something happened. There was a crowd was just like, "Oh, look," and he gets knocked over and gets knocked off of the platform, and he's like on the tracks, and a train's coming in, and somebody saw him, and they reach down, they grab him, they pull him up, and they save his life. And the guy's just like, he got lucky, and Lincoln's son's like, "Yeah, thank you." And so Lincoln's son goes to the White House, and he goes, "I was just saved by," and he says the guy's name, and I don't remember the name, but it was the acting brother, also an actor, I should say, the brother, also actor, of John Wilkes Booth, the older brother. And so Lincoln sent him a really nice letter, saying thank you and da-da-da. Meanwhile, I think it was later that day or a couple weeks later, whatever it was, his brother, that man who just saved Lincoln's son, his brother kills Lincoln. Kind of crazy. Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he didn't die right
Bled to
away.
death.
Really?
Yeah,
Bled to death.
About
he was
12 hours.
like alive in
Yeah.
the
He's like, "Can you
hotel
guys
for
just,"
like
and
a
they're
day.
like, "We don't know how to do anything."
Yeah,
Yeah. What play was he?
They think that he died because they were trying to find the wound. And of course, they didn't wash their hands or stuff like that, but they think that they were trying to dig the bullet out from the Derringer out of his skull, and they think they pushed it in, and they might have had whatever on their hand, and they got the hole infected, and that also helped to not. It helped to basically kill him. What is this? Okay. So okay, sorry. Back to the video.
You saying? Does anyone know?
Fuck, I do know.
What?
What play?
What was the play? It was at the Ford's Theater.
I don't remember that.
What was the play? Oh. I'm gonna know it as soon as I hear it. My Fellow Americans?
See what he was watching.
No.
Yeah, it was something good.
Yeah.
He was fixated.
He was into it.
He didn't notice the
That was
assassin.
the weird thing. It was Hamilton.
Yeah, it was Hamilton.
Yeah.
He was sitting there like, what was it?
Our American Cousin.
Nice. He was sitting there watching it like, I got to pretend to like this.
Yeah.
It's fucking Hamilton.
And then they shot him, and he was like, "Thank God."
This place sucks.
Christ, this shit sucks so bad. So that brings us to Johnson.
Okay. I'm going to go back just a little bit back to... All right. Andrew Johnson is about 10 hours away from me in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he's on my list. I'd like to go down and visit him and then go up to Louisville and visit the grave of Zachary Taylor. I'm going to do it right now. All right, I'm going to end the video. I'll be back. All right, there's a thanks button. You can donate to the channel. Any donation is appreciated, and I sincerely do thank you for it. You can request videos, but you don't have to. You can still request without donating. They just take longer to get to. If you've watched more of my videos, then just subscribe. It's free. Give a thumbs up. That's absolutely free, and it just costs you just this. That's all it takes. If this is too much work for you, then don't watch my channel. I mean, you should continue to watch my channel. That was my threat. All right. And if you'd like to give the thumbs down button a good old, then I question your ability to live. Because I hope it doesn't continue. And we're going to end it here. Have a good day. Have a good night.